Hi and welcome to our presentation. We are Node of Ingenuity, and first of all we're going to introduce ourselves. My name's Katrin Menzoni and I graduated in business in 2006. I ran my own business, taught abroad, taught in the UK for 10 years and did a master's degree in education before I discovered coding.
Hi, I'm Luke Chaplin. Before the School of Code, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, specifically clinical trials, for over 13 years. During that time, tech began to have a more and more increasing role in the world of the life sciences, and I wanted to expand my skill sets and change career to upskill myself for this new world.
Hi, I'm India. Prior to the School of Code, I was working as an English teacher. I joined the School of Code because I was ready for a career change into something that challenges me and allows me to be creative.
I am Nada. I worked as a chemistry teacher before joining School of Code. I wanted a change in career, a career that I could progress in, and a career that I could build from home, as family is really important to me, and becoming a software engineer fit the bill.
Hi, I'm Alexander. Before the School of Code, I was in management and recruitment. During that time, I noticed that a lot of problems could be solved through the smart use of technology. Therefore, I joined School of Code to learn how to make applications that solve real-life problems and reduce boring and repetitive tasks. We also have another member, a valuable member. His name is Michael. Unfortunately, he's not available at the moment.
We were given a project in which we had 4 weeks to solve an open-ended problem for a user. This gave us a lot of leeway to generate a number of ideas that we could use for our project. With the help of using a mirror board, we had decided to use Disney Ideation to help generate our ideas. With a number of ideas that we had generated, we decided to split them into categories and started voting for the ones that seemed the most feasible to complete within the time that we had been given. We had to whittle down our selection by category in accordance with what the group would enjoy working on, as well as how likely we could complete the project within 4 weeks. This was firstly done by category before eventually voting for the most optimal app idea from each. One of the most important questions that we had asked in this survey was which platform would they have seen this app being built on, whether they'd prefer it on a mobile or a desktop app. And we had an overwhelming amount of people that would have preferred it on a mobile app, which brings us on to our tech stack. For our tech stack, we use Miro for our Disney ideation as previously seen, as well as Draw.io to create our user story. We also use Figma for our front-end wireframing. For managing the project, we use a Jira board from Atlassian, and for our front-end, we decided to use React Native to create a mobile app, which uses Expo, and we also used Xcode so that we could emulate how the app would look on an iPhone. For our backend, we decided to use Firebase as we found this was an easier way for us to store our data as well as provide authentication for our users.
Thanks, Mike. As Mike was just discussing with the choice of tech stacks, once this was complete, Tribe was ready to go. I will now take you through a demo of the app that we built. As you can see on the screen that I'm now sharing is a simulator version of the Tribe app. We optimized it for iPhone 11. As you can see, when you open up the app, you have the option of a login or create account button. For the purposes of this demo, I have already created an account, so we'll go ahead and log in. Once you log in, you'll see you have the option to select the account you want. We have multiple options. In this instance, we just have the option for one parental account, but if there is any children's accounts, they would also be available here. Clicking on the account takes you to the dashboard. At the top, you will see we have a counter showing chores that are still to do and a streak counter showing chores that have been completed. To add a chore, you click on Add Chore, give it a title and a description, a due date, and someone to assign it to. You then click on Add Chore, and as you can see, the chore has been added to the list of the account. To complete a chore, to move it from in progress to completed, you just press and hold and do a long press. and it's moved to completed. We can then go back to the dashboard and you will see that that completed chore is now on the streak counter. Another way to view any chores is to click on the View Chores button. As you can see, that takes us back to that view of in progress or completed, and you can also add another chore as required. Finally, I'd like to show you the Show Streak button. Clicking on that provides a more in-depth detailed view of the streak screen, and also has a button to take you back to the dashboard. We also have one feature that is still in progress, which is our Manage Family button. This shows you a list of all the accounts available and also allows you to add additional members to the family account as required. This will only be available for parental accounts, not children accounts. And again, also parental accounts will be the only types of account that will be able to add chores. Children's accounts will only be able to view chores or mark them as completed. That completes the demonstration of the app, and I will hand back over to Kat, who will take you through testing.
Thanks, Luke. Next, we're going to talk to you a little bit about testing. So we created 11 tests to test our application within 5 different testing suites, and we used Jest, React Native Testing Library, and React Test Renderer as well. We created snapshot tests, unit tests, and rendering tests. And here you can see an example of one of our testing suites and the 3 tests within it. And here is a screenshot of the test suites and snapshot tests passing as well. So just wanted to share with you a few testing takeaways. We achieved working tests, which were testing just rendering of elements and the display of elements as well. But there were a few issues that we had. So the first problem was that the tests were actually written after the components rather than before, which caused us some problems. And we also struggled quite a great deal with testing because we were using unfamiliar technologies, React Native and Firebase, and also the Expo framework as well. So some improvements that could be made to our testing approach would be to adopt a TDD approach in which we write tests before components, and also to improve testing of functionality. So the next part we'll be going on to discuss will be the design of our app. So first of all, in order to design our app, we created user personas and stories as well. So here is an example of one of the user personas that we created for a lady called Eloise Brown, who's 33 years old. And we also created one for Samuel Brown as well, who was 36 years old. We also created a user story to explain how the user would use the application.
Thanks, Kat. I will now discuss branding and design, an example of which you can see in the background of our presentation here. We started off by researching various different app designs and color palettes using tools like Color.io. We researched using various mood boards, as you can see here. And once we had our mood boards and color palettes chosen, we iterated over the options using a voting system as a group until we came to a design language we all agreed on. Once we had our design language agreed, we then went on to produce low fidelity wireframes of our app using Figma, as you can see here. And then we also produced high fidelity wireframes as well. So all our team knew how to style each component and screen when we actually came to coding. I will now hand over to India, who will discuss project management.
Working in a team of 6 and given a deadline of 4 weeks, we realised that project management was going to be an important aspect to consider if we were to successfully meet our project aims. On our first day of meeting, we created a team manifesto outlining our values, goals, and how we would communicate with each other. Throughout the project, we worked really closely as a team to ensure all members understood the code base and their roles for the day. This was facilitated by holding daily stand-ups and retrospectives, where we could discuss our tasks for the day, our progress, and any challenges we faced. We used Jira to manage our tasks and to assign tickets to pairs. This ensured we stayed in alignment with our project goals. We also created a project timeline and planned 1-week sprints where we outlined our objectives for each week. We emphasized being agile during this project by continuously building on our MVP, modifying existing functionality and adding new features incrementally. We found this way of working to be really efficient as we met our MVP early and then we had time to add any extra features.
Thanks, India. Now let's have a closer look at the code behind the app. When we decided we were going to build a mobile app, we had to do some research to find the best framework to work with. There were many other frameworks such as Ionic, Titanium, but we settled with React Native. The fact that we were already familiar with React made it a natural choice for us to work with React Native, as it is built on React. In fact, we found React Native to be very easy to work with, as it had a lot of inbuilt components, so it saved us time to build those components from scratch. Another benefit was React Native works on both platforms, iOS and Android. We just had to install Expo CLI, which is used for creating and deploying React Native apps. And we installed Xcode, which was a mobile simulator, allowing us to see changes in real time. When it came to choosing how to set up our backend, we had an idea where to begin. We were already familiar with PostgreSQL as a database, but we wanted to explore other options, and we came across Firebase. Firebase is a platform developed by Google for creating mobile and web applications. Some good features that come with it is built-in authentication database, which saved us time from having to set up Auth0, and real-time databases. Firebase authentication provides backend services and ready-made UI libraries to authenticate users to our app. Setting up our user database and configs were easy to do. We simply had a firebase.js file that had our environmental variables that connected our app to the database. Firebase also came in with a lot of built-in queries that made creating, reading, updating, or deleting database entries very easy. It's saving us time to build other components of the app. And now Alex will discuss some of the challenges we faced.
Thanks, Nada. So let's look at the challenges that we faced during our project and how we overcame them. There are two areas that I will focus on, and that's mobile development and Firestore. So none of us had any experience with mobile development, but we decided to take a risk and try to deliver a mobile app optimized for the most popular device purchased in 2021, and that's iPhone 11. There was a learning curve. We spent our first week researching ways of creating a mobile app, and we've set a deadline to decide on whether it's far too complicated and risky or if we're not going ahead. We've looked at options such as native development, Ionic, and React Native. We learned that native development is great in terms of performance and would allow us to go really into detail when we're developing the app. We've learned that by using Ionic, we could create a progressive web app. However, it could lead to reduced performance compared to native and React Native. And finally, we learned that React Native compiles the code into native code, but it also provides us with a familiar basis on which we could start building. We already knew React. We found that React Native is very similar to React. However, there are differences in terms of component names and listeners. We also find that React Native by default currently doesn't support certain functionality that we can take for granted in web development. Even basic things such as checkboxes were removed, and we've had to search for alternatives in the React Native community. The second challenge that we faced was to do with Firestore. So once again, we didn't have any experience with Firebase authentication and Firestore, but authentication was pretty straightforward. We looked at docs and on the videos that are on the Firebase website, and we incorporated that in our app sign up and login screen. However, with Firestore, we did find it a bit confusing in the beginning. And that's because we tried to view it through an SQL relational database perspective, as that's what we covered during the course. So we had to put a bit more research than expected into learning how NoSQL databases work. So what are collections and documents? However, once we understood the concept, it became smooth sailing from there, especially as NoSQL databases are really flexible and documents look like a JavaScript object. We did spend approximately 30% of our project researching. However, that did not set us behind on our MVP because using Firestore SDK provides built-in functions which allows us to quickly run CRUD operations without us needing to set up an SQL database, writing functions for requests, and creating our Express API points. So what's next? Well, our plan was to complete the MVP in the 4-week time frame and afterwards look at deploying it on the App Store or Play Store. As deployment for mobile apps is not as straightforward as it is on web apps, we didn't focus on deployment as part of this project, and that's mostly because App Store requires a paid subscription, but it could also take longer than expected to get the app approved. As far as features go, so notifications would be a great thing included because it helps the user remember deadlines. Also, giving the user rewards such as badges and points could motivate children to do their chores. And finally, allowing the parents to add custom rewards and toggle whether or not the children themselves can add or assign chores to the other members would be useful. And that's it. We've reached the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.